Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Funky Marketing Show. And today we're going to talk about how to be happy at work. But before we start with that, I'm going to have the funky intro and I'm going to remain on the screen while it's happening. And I'm going to add my guest, Catherine Simon, as well. So it's cool. Let's try something different. Whew, that was nice. Catherine, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah, I mean your background goes well with the funky intro and everything. Like I always like how people who are working to enable other people to work well have that aura around them, because and I think that's kind of something that I'm seeing as a natural thing to like. I know at least 10 or 15 people that are really close to me that are doing more or less the same job, and all of them have this aura that attracts people and give them trust and confidence.
Oh, you have to like what you do in this business.
Yeah. So today we're going to talk about, we named the episode "Life and Having Fun at Work," but we're going to talk about different things. We're going to start with your background to see how did you, because I know that you have a different background, change lots of different environments demographically, lots of life experience in that way different, and now you are in a specific industry in a specific country. We're going to talk about that as well, but also about the state of the IT industry, of recruiting, building the teams and everything else. So for starters, maybe you can tell us a few things about yourself.
Sure. So my name is Catherine and I'm from New York, but I actually studied in Europe for most of my education in Italy. I studied in Croatia and I moved back to New York where I worked for 8 years in the fashion industry and then in television as a producer. So I did a lot of grunt work, we call it, like the gopher, the do everything the can do girl in a lot of different industries. And Italian was mostly the thread that connected everything. And then one day I had a job offer that paid me pretty well, but was kind of boring, not in a fun industry. But I needed the job to support my family. I was pregnant with my second kid. And I basically learned all about what a toxic work environment was over those 3 years. So it was kind of a crash course. I was really just staying observant. I needed the job. I learned a lot. I stayed on the good side of my boss. But eventually, as it was foreseen to happen, the shit hit the fan at some point, and I had to get out. And I learned so much from this experience about what I did not want. I learned to value my skills and to demand for the right kind of environment, demand the right kind of culture, and never put myself through something like that again. So it was that crazy experience that led me to the tech industry, because I met a coach who, after hearing me describe my skills as kind of administration, tools, computer skills, I kind of devalued what I was bringing to companies, and she thought I was amazing, and I was kind of confused. What is it that's so special? Anyone can do what I do. That's what I thought. But actually, it's not true at all. And I began a career in tech as a project management professional in a big IT company in Brooklyn. Worked my way up and was recruited as an operations manager for the development company in Belgrade, Serbia. And that's where my Serbian adventure started. So I had a bunch of experiences in Serbia as well. One was really difficult, where I had to leave after 1 year because they offered me my contract at 40% of my original salary. and I'd already uprooted my whole family and my 3 kids at this point. I just had a newborn, which was crazy. So I was in a foreign country with the highest unemployment of all of Europe and the worst monthly average salary of the world, maybe except for, I don't know, Ecuador. In as a foreigner with nowhere to go, and I was interviewing left and right and hiding my jacket in my bag and sneaking out at lunchtime. And when I would ask for the salary I wanted, people were like laughing at me. They're like, "No way." So that was crazy, and I just figured if I can make like an hourly rate, like an American hourly rate, and stay in Serbia where the cost of life is so much less, I think I can make it work. So I just quit my job. I just walked out. I said, "You can't treat me like this. I won't have it." And everybody thought I was crazy. But I got one client and I got another client, and I was counting my pennies, or dinars actually, in Belgrade just to buy milk for the kids. It was really crazy life experience. But I did it. And little by little, people were asking me, how did I do it? And so I started coaching women how to do that. I said, you don't have to stay in your crappy job either. I'm going to teach you how to do it. And I charge them, immediate, not a lot of money, but for a coaching program that would let them quit their jobs and work on their own time and be able to take care of kids and have a work-life balance. That's kind of the whole first start to my story. It's pretty long so far. I don't know if you have any questions.
Yeah, like so many things to uncover over there. But I think the first one is definitely you got a taste of what it feels like doing what you don't like, and in a company when you don't like the way things are being done. I think like that gave you sort of like insights in how you don't want things to be and how you can do it, and then basically you saw how things can be done differently. But I think that thing is always a good thing for us to remember. Like if we can maybe learn from this conversation or from some others. Um, I wanted to ask you to think of a few things. What are you actually asking now when you got through that experience before you joined the company? Do you have some signs that are kind of the alarming signs that I don't want to do this again?
Yeah, I think the one important thing to ask about is the leadership team, to check if they have some decent kind of diversity. Not only gender, let's say, but background. Do they have different perspectives? Do they value diversity at the decision-making level? That will already give you a good idea as to how open-minded and progressive and forward-thinking they are. And that's really important. It's the growth mindset that you want to ensure that you have. The next thing I would ask would be about the evaluation and objective setting policy. Do they take it really seriously that every employee needs to know exactly what's expected of them and if they're doing a good job? Because those two things are just fundamental in employee well-being at the work environment. You need to know what is expected and if you're doing a good job. It seems really, really simple, but so many companies, especially startups and scale-ups, they just skip over this step. They're like, we're running, everybody knows what they're supposed to do. We don't need to evaluate people. And years go by and people start dropping off and they wonder why. So I would definitely ask about that. Ask about the HR team. Another thing that people do is skip, kind of cut corners on HR, and they just have like one representative person that sort of signs the paychecks and deals with the administration. But do they have someone in charge of looking at learning and growth development? Do they have someone looking at diversity and inclusion or engagement? Do they, cover any of these topics that are really relevant today to employees? That should give you some good insight. Also, if they have values, although a lot of companies do jump on the bandwagon for the values, it's kind of like an obvious one these days, but you can ask for concrete examples. So if you say, your value is whatever, autonomy or something like this, you have to say, can you give me 2 concrete examples of that being put into place at your company? Because a lot of times they cover their bases by making up values, but they haven't really understood that those values are attached to actions, policies, and decisions that they make every day.
Yeah, I love that. Love that. I mean, even by asking all those previous questions, you get to see if their values are actually supported by the actions or no.
Right.
A- and I mean, like, all these questions got me thinking. Like, we are now and also working with a couple of companies that are recruiting or working around HR softwares, those kind of stuff. Like, I think the biggest thing right now is that people can choose, especially in the IT technology companies. They can choose companies, and like some of those things that you mentioned are into consideration. Do they choose the right company or no? And the added value becomes one thing that makes them stand out. How much the company cares about the employees, about them, about those things, because they will get their salary anywhere,
Yeah.
right? At this moment in time, they will get the salary anywhere, especially if they are like senior talent. But then, like, that makes all the other things extremely important for them, like the, as you mentioned, work-life balance. Also, like, does the company care about the specific things that they care about as
Hmm.
well? And all those, maybe we were considering them small side things, but now they are becoming the main thing, especially after COVID and everything else. Am I
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah. Totally. And also, I mean, it's also not only a recruitment strategy, but it's a productivity strategy. So if you want people to do their best work, they need to show up happy, like you said, like with an aura around them. That's what pushes you to do your best work. So you can just, advertise these things and have people come, but if they're not true and they're not really present every day, people will only give 75% of their potential every day, which means you're burning 25% of their salary for no reason at all. And eventually they'll leave, and you'll pay for that turnover as well. Some turnover is healthy. You do want people coming in and out and growing and learning from different experiences, but when it's under 1 year, you're really looking at a huge cost.
Yeah. Before we get into all those details, I want to ask you, like, not many people have moved from US to Serbia. So tell me a little bit about that experience. How was that like?
How was that
And,
like?
and, and basically, you've been all around. Like, you've been to Italy, Croatia, now in France as well.
I mean, I don't know if I can remember first impressions. I can remember like what stays with me today is just the people are incredible. I mean, the hospitality that you feel in this part of the world, and that includes, Bosnia as well, as far as I've seen. It's just, it's mind blowing. I mean, to have people like give up their bed for you, or prepare a meal for you, or take care that you have slippers on in their house, and feed you until you can't possibly have another bite, and pay for everything, even when they don't have a nickel to their name. It's really amazing. Like that's something that really touched me when I was over there, and something that that stays with me today. It's just a kind, warm people, at least to foreigners. I know I've heard people can complain about people in the Balkans like looking out a little bit more for themselves and less for their neighbor. But I never experienced that as a foreigner, and I never experienced it in Belgrade with my colleagues either. They're just amazing people, and so kind and supportive. They'll just give you the shirt off of their back in a snowstorm, like without any hesitation whatsoever, and that's crazy for me. Amazing, and of course, amazing food, beautiful city. I mean, Belgrade is just gorgeous. Like even after some time, in the beginning, I think the graffiti sticks out at you, and you think, oh,
Hmm.
this is awful. Why is there graffiti everywhere? But at some point, it becomes a part of the charm. I mean, of the city, and you come to love like even the little dirty parts, even the parts that need some repair, a few cobblestones missing here or there. It has a charm to it. So I don't know. I love it there. I love it in the Balkans. I love the Balkan people. I really feel at home. So I think it's a place of all the places I've lived where I feel when I go back, I'm at home, even though I don't have any family there. And a lot of my friends have moved on. I just feel like instantly at home.
Yeah, that's nice to hear. Like, a great, good overview for me. Somebody who lives in the country, and I always like to hear from other people, like what is their impression of the country, of Belgrade, of other cities as well around us, because like I feel like we are somewhere similar to the people from the US in a way that, at least I think so, we are both direct in
Yeah,
communication, uh, compared to, I don't know, like Switzerland or German-based countries, when people are not so, not expressing themselves so openly as we do in that way.
I think you're right. That was also a really a big impression, is how similar the cultures were and how so easily at home I could feel. And because I think I had a preconception of that the Serbs were going to hate me because I'm American, just because of the history and all this. And I almost was like very treading lightly as I got into Belgrade. Like I didn't want to tell people that I'm American. And I don't know, I had this idea like history happened and, but they were just, sorry, allergies today. They were so welcoming and so
I suffer of the same thing. So
really, it's crazy in Paris, like the pollen, it's like on the weather report. So they were just so welcoming and, I didn't even mind saying that I'm American at some point. And I learned the language so easily, not easily, but, learned it. And even people there would think when I said I'm American, they think I must be born to Serb parents or something. That's how much I fit in. Whereas in France, I've been here for 5 years now, which I can hardly believe. It feels like yesterday that I moved.
yeah,
And I still don't feel French. I mean, I speak the language. I work at a French company. I have French neighbors. My kids go to French school. But there's just something, it's not there for me yet. Maybe it'll come after a while, but I still miss Serbia.
yeah, but tell me, let's go from the beginning. Like when you started working in a company based in Paris, right? Um, it's a little bit different because like France is a little bit different than England, UK, for example. Uh, Especially, did you know the language before you came to Paris?
I had studied it in college like 20 years ago. And I know Italian, so I could put stuff together and I had a decent understanding in the beginning, but I didn't know it well enough to work or anything like that. No.
Yeah, and what I'm pointing out is that I wanna find out how it was when you come to the company and how it was now and what was the change that you brought, and to talk a little bit about those things.
Oh, wow.
Looking at a 5 years distance now.
Well, this is actually my second job in France. So the first year or so, I was on a maternity leave with my
Hmm.
fourth kid. Um, so I had some time to check out, the lay of the land and see what could I do here. Because in Belgrade, I had done everything from setting up the office to recruiting the first people to making work contracts to bringing people back and forth to Switzerland from Belgrade to conferences to PR and everything you can imagine. But on my resume, it doesn't really reflect that because I had a weird title like unit manager or Belgrade manager or director of Belgrade, something like this. So what do you do with that in a foreign country? Like, how do you apply for a job when they don't understand what you do? So I spent a long time like interviewing people in the industry. I asked for connections, recommendations, basically from my network in Belgrade. Veve Vršac.
Yeah,
I think you.
Josic and the
Yeah.
other guys. Yeah.
So Ivan and his brother, they actually recommended I speak with a couple of people here in their network. And those people were just generous enough to sit down with me and have a coffee, and I could pick their brains and just say, what's going on in the tech scene? I knew I wanted to stay in tech, but I didn't know what I could specialize in exactly. I'd done so many different things. I said, what is the main challenge right now? What are people struggling with? And I tried to match that with something that I could bring value to, something that I knew how to do well and something that I was passionate about. And time again, the need was culture, like creating this kind of healthy work environment to recruit and retain employees. And I was like, well, I know how to do that. So I wrote to my old company and asked, like, would it be okay for me to change the title on just like on my LinkedIn? So it doesn't say unit manager, but it says like HR manager, which actually is a third of what I did. So it's actually like a degradation, or how you call it. And the guy said no.
Oh my God.
And I just was stunned. I just couldn't believe it. And so I didn't do anything. And I talked to another professional in the industry, a woman, and I told her my struggle. I said, nobody's getting back to me because I have this weird title on my resume. And they just don't know what I do. So I can't apply to be an HR if I have a unit manager job on my last work experience of 5 years.
Yeah, yeah.
And so she's like, well, why do you care what he thinks? Why it's your LinkedIn profile. You can write that you were like a monkey trainer if you want, And so I was like, okay. So I did it.
Seems like advice I would give you as well.
Yeah. And like 2 days later, I had a job offer. So, it was crazy. And now I changed it back just to like have it on the record, my exact title, just for accuracy's sake. But that was a crazy journey. Like, really, I was getting no responses. I got one interview, and then they said, your French is not good enough. And I said, but you didn't test my French. And then they never got back to me. So I think they meant you're too foreign for us. I'm not sure. But
Yeah, here is Ivan Josic saying hi.
okay. So basically, at Scaleway, what I came to was a company of about 250 people, whose HR team was a bit in distress, a bit overworked. They were so stressed that they were having trouble making decisions and being decisive about things. And their leadership had been off for a while on personal leave. So when I met the CEO, Jan Michel, and he explained to me the ambition of the company, it sounded really, really cool. And he said, all right, how do you feel about leading like a team of 14 people in HR? I'm like, okay, I'll try it. And everything that we talked about before the job offer was so interesting. And I met the Arnaud, who is the founder. And we talked a lot about culture and a lot about, how you can kind of give employees everything they want, but at some point what you provide has to make sense and has to be on point with the values of the company and what you're trying to achieve. So if your values are, to be very Spartan and be like very simple, you don't need to give people like big bean bags all over the office and rainbow slides and free beer. It's up to you to create the right culture based on your values and to stay true to them. And when we had that conversation, we were totally aligned. It just clicked. And so I came in and, well, a lot of things surprised me in the beginning. One was that the HR team was in a room, like with a lock on it. And I was like, don't you think people feel like they're in trouble when they come see you? Aren't you supposed to be like there to help people, make them feel better? And I would feel every time I come, I feel like I'm in trouble. I had to like knock on the door and it's all secluded and there's like a lock. So I said, let's go out in the open space, and there was a lot of hesitation. There was a big culture transformation, little by little. I tried not to be too big of an American loud person, but little by little, I tried to coax them and empower them to make decisions, to not be afraid of not pleasing everyone. There was a lot of this, I think, and the HR in France is really particular. The labor law is so strong and so good and so protective of the employee that at some point HR becomes either like a bad guy or an admin person who's just there to like check the rules. So
yeah, that's a good thing. Good insights, because like here in Serbia, from time to time, I can only read like what are some things that are happening when it comes to the law for the employees, and all the things that are going towards employee, and people are sharing it all around. Yeah, we want that in Serbia, we want this to go, but it's good to have insights from another perspective.
Yeah, it's very, very good, but it's a job to manage. It's a serious, serious job, and I don't have any background in French labor law. I'm not French. I don't have any of this culture in my career or just naturally. So it was a huge job, but the team was so cool and so awesome and so accepting of me. I really wasn't expecting that. Like, I thought they would think I was this loud, crazy person with these radical ideas and making them change their office and making them change the way they do things and making them use Jira for ticket handling and processing I said, we work for an engineering company. I want you to work the way the engineers do. We don't want paper on the desks. We don't need a printer. Why do you have a printer? So I was sort of challenging a lot of these things, and I thought that they would be scared. And I think they might have been in the beginning, but it's been a year and a half, and we've really achieved some incredible progress here. We have total full remote. You don't have to ask when you're working from home. We don't care where you're sitting. We're now recruiting people all over Europe, all over France, and even beyond. We've helped people move out of France who wanted to join their family from Japan, for example. We've changed work contracts for people. We've put in more internal mobility and evaluation processes. We've added vacation bank, time-saving bank, where if you don't use your vacation, you can save it or you can donate it to a colleague. If you donate it to a colleague for a real serious emergency, the company will match you half-half, 50-50.
Nice.
We've done psychometric personality testing for the whole company, including team building workshops on how to work together and co-create results more effectively. So it's amazing. I think I put together a list for our last all hands to just brag a little bit about the team. We're now 18 people, and we've grown from that 250. We're now 500. So it's pretty
That's
crazy.
double. Yeah.
Double in a year and a half, and we're adding 200 more this year. So it's remarkable. It's like a fast track MBA for me, and I'm having a great time.
Yeah, I'm always. I'm not that surprised at the moment, but from time to time, I get surprised how fast our IT developing companies growing. Working with H Tech, like in 3 months, they grew from 200 employees to 800.
In 2 months?
Something it was 3 or 4, something like that. But I mean, they now have over 1,000 employees.
That's
For example, like the company, when I'm now the fractional CMO, like I didn't know that they exist when I started working with them in January. They already had around 100 employees. Now they are 100, and I'm like, how come that big of a company just appeared in the center of Novi Sad? And I found out that they exist the morning I went to the meeting
Oh my
with
gosh.
with the leadership. Like
That's fast, but that's almost too fast. I think it's really hard to maintain culture with that kind of growth. But I mean, sometimes it's necessary, but you're going to pay for it, I think, in turnover a little bit down the line. I think
yeah,
that
it's
there's a healthy amount of growth, and
mhm.
I don't know, 10% month over month is sort of
Yeah,
possible.
it's this was interesting because it wasn't all in one company. There are like
Okay.
3 4 companies in one. So one is dealing with architects, another, the biggest one is are developers, the third one are accountants,
Okay.
and now the fourth one is marketing. So basically it's like the 4 companies.
Okay. Wow.
I mean, but having in mind that all tech companies are growing fast in that way, because the way you build a company is not like you have as few people, but it's if you're having developers, engineers, basically it grows fast in
Hmm.
people, and when it grows fast, it breaks,
Yeah.
right? So, what would you say? What are some things that we need to to keep track on, to keep the values and the culture that started. Usually, it starts with a CEO or the founder in this way, right? And then it develops as people are coming to the company and so on and so on.
I think hiring HR very early is a very smart move, and making sure it's a really stable team to support the growth. Because if you set the groundwork early, you can really sustain hyper growth much more easily. If you just
Hmm.
jump and start going with hyper growth, it's fine, but you're going to end up paying for it later down the line, which I believe is more costly, both emotionally and stress wise and financially for the company. So the HR really needs to focus on onboarding very early, making sure there's a really firm 90-day onboarding plan that people can do autonomously almost and remotely. So like kind of a checklist thing that they can collaborate on and make sure that they're really up to speed, making sure people don't need to be operational too early on so that the pressure is low if possible. Making sure that people get to meet people in the leadership team in the first 90 days, that they have objectives, so that the HR would need to really have a firm structure on how objectives are set and given and documented and evaluated. So if that's there even from day one, then people are pretty good to go. Those are the things I think to focus on in the very beginning. And then next comes process, so that process is easy and scalable, because you can start out with, oh, sure, you can just email me if you need to have a sick leave. But at some point, you can't have 500 people emailing you their sick leaves. It doesn't scale, and you can't talk to all of them at once. So you have to put in some kind of a ticketing system, make sure you have documentation on every kind of process possible. Everything should be documented, and people should be able to find almost all their answers alone without asking for help. Those, I think, are the first most important steps that are often skipped.
Yeah, and especially now when we live in this, hybrid systems and work in hybrid systems, and people can work from all around the globe, even if they're in the same country, they don't need to be in the office.
Right.
And there are some that needs to come to the office as well. So you need to make sure that both sides are kind of like satisfied.
Yeah. But just having someone in charge of all of that in the beginning is the first step. Even if they don't know exactly what they're doing, even if they're not too experienced, as long as they have the common sense that they know they are there to set things up so that the company can grow. I think, you don't need too senior of a profile to do that. Like if you're a startup and you're kind of on a tight budget, but just someone who's dedicated to like good employee experience and who knows how to document things and use tools to be more efficient, that's going to set you up for a good success in a hyper growth phase.
Yeah, I mean, to be able to enter the hypergrowth phase, you need to document things, to come up with templates, processes, and all those other stuff. I was the person who was running away from it, but now when I'm like the functional CMO, that's my job, and to
Yeah,
make sure that they have everything in place, because like depending on the goals, but the goal is to grow, and then we need to set up with everything that needs to be done over there. Sometimes, the way we do things and that we do it fast, it's more important than the quality itself. I mean, I'm not the fan of it all the time, but sometimes it's needed. The quality comes if you follow the process or
yeah.
specific things.
Well, yeah, just save yourself time too. You don't want to have to keep on repeating yourself. So if you write it all down and document it, then it's searchable and you can replicate it, and everybody saves time.
Yeah, but tell me one thing. So, having fun at work, how do we make a balance between doing the work actually and having the fun while we are not, doing the actual work and doing on that? How do we balance those things? I mean, there are lots of things, especially in the IT companies, in gaming companies, when you have lots of stuff available for the employees to do outside of work. I don't know, to play games, billiard, to I don't know, lots of different stuff. So how do we make that balance? I mean, I know when I entered the company, like there are at any time like 10 people playing soccer, other people are working on their things, some are drinking coffee, like lots of stuff to do. How do you make that balance that people dedicate their time for actually doing the work?
Well, I think there's a difference between having fun and being entertained.
Mm-hmm.
Having fun means being engaged in what you're doing, somehow intellectually stimulated, having some kind of a challenge. I think those are the three components that we need to be really having fun and enjoying in what we're doing. So what I try to do more is to create an environment where people can have fun in their day-to-day work, that they can enjoy the actual work that they're doing. And if they need to take a break and have entertainment, that's up to them on how they want to manage their time, and if they need a recharge just by taking that break. But that to me is entertainment, like taking a little foosball
Mm-hmm.
break or having the coffee, or it's engaging with your colleagues and creating relationships. So I think the key to actually having fun in work is, funnily enough, setting rules. It's kind of like at school. So why are there so many rules in your kindergarten class? It's to allow you to really have fun and learn and have fun while learning. So if people take the time to establish the rules of the game beforehand, then every day becomes a lot of fun. So we work on that a lot here. We put a set of rules on how we communicate, how we collaborate, how we address performance, how we address lack of performance, meeting expectations versus not meeting them, how we address setting goals, how we make decisions. So if you take time to do all that, and assuming the people you hire are there because they actually like their work, and you give them challenge, then it's really like, imagine a kindergarten class with everybody running around having a great time, but they're learning, right? They're learning how to read and write and their letters. But if you remember your kindergarten experience, you don't remember any of that. You remember just having a blast. You remember the best time of your life.
Yeah, I love that. Love that. I mean, having a great challenge is also one of the things we need to get inside the scope of work, especially in the tech companies, because that's one of the things that will make someone decide if they're gonna go to work for that company or that one. And you reminded me of the times when I was a GM of the company for the first time, and like I wanted everybody to grow as fast as I'm growing at the times. And I was, because I got to that position because I was sharing everything that I was learning. It was lots of videos, lots of articles, lots of stuff, because I was really learning fast, and I knew my goal, but not everybody knew their goals, or they have different ones. And then I get the feedback, and like somebody just wants to come to work for 8 hours, do a decent job, and go home. So you need to be aware of that, and treat them differently. That's when also like one-on-one conversations and personal trajectories of work also came into place. I need to have that. So every person needs to have their own journey. They need to have their own goals, the way they are getting to them, and we need to enable them to reach them in a way. On the other hand, like as a GM, I needed to take care of the company goal. So like, do I need those people at this moment in the company?
I think
And it's an interesting position to be.
Yeah, it depends on the kind of people you want to hire too. And I mean, I think that there's not that kind of people per se. There's just sometimes you're in a different phase of your career.
Yeah.
And your personal reasons for being at the job are different. And I think you can always challenge people to, even if they at first reject that kind of challenge, you can still try it. Just take a step back and ask for smaller milestones and smaller goals. And also ask, like, in a more coaching way, like, what is it that they want to achieve? I do have employees like that who are kind of just, ask them what, are you looking for more challenge now in the year to come? And they're like, whatever the company needs, and you're like, okay, well, let's talk about this in a few months. I give them a little bit of time and some self-reflection exercises that we do as a group. Like once a month, I bring the team together and we ask kind of questions to each other in pairs, like, what is it your expectation for yourself, and what does the other person think, what is their expectation of you? And then you discuss that, and it sort of can unlock this thinking and help people try to imagine their next steps and imagine what, get in touch with what they really love to do and what is challenging for them.
Yeah, that's great actually, that you do those things. I think we were missing that in the last agency when I worked at. And because at the moment I was that guy that you described, or a girl, however it is, like just do whatever the company needs.
Yeah.
At the moment I was so into company. I left my hometown to come here in Novi Sad to work, and I was, I'm going to do just whatever to get the company to the next level. And that was, uh, for me, when I realized, when I look back, this is the moment where I already needed to leave the company.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
maybe that's not what every person needs to do, but for me, when I look back, that was the thing that I need to do. And also, I want to touch a little bit the rules that you
Mm.
mentioned. For example, like I got the team, and they had fully flexible schedule, so they can do the work wherever they want.
Mm-hmm.
And that was okay until they started to to be late with things. I could not catch them when I needed information from them,
Mm.
those kind of stuff. So I realized, okay, if we don't have A plus players for the team, and not like majority of companies don't even have one A plus player, so we need to have some rules. And then we remove the part of the freedom, meaning, for example, like we are working from Serbia and from Canada. So like the first 4 hours in a day when the clients are waking up in Canada, social media and SEO and those kind of stuff. So we needed to be in contact with them. Those 4 hours are when you need to respond to all the messages, not instantly, but within like 10, 15 minutes. Outside of that, 4 hours, use it as you like. Use it to write, to do some things that doesn't require interaction with other people, those kind of stuff, and it worked. But I realized that they needed some kind of structure. They needed some kind of rules to actually guide them to where they need to get the results.
Yeah, totally. That's all you need sometimes. And it's good to co-create the rules too, to do some workshopping, quarter to quarter, get everyone into a brainstorming session and say, what are the top rules, if you can pick 5 or 6 that we need to abide by as a team, and then you can kind of vote on them and see which ones get the top votes, and then see if your rules need to change at some point and evolve the way you evolve as a team as well.
Yeah, so one thing I'm interested in, how hard was to actually change things. Because we always talk about it, and not many people actually acknowledge that it was hard, and it needed me to go slow to change things a little bit. Especially you mentioned some of the things, like you are somebody that's coming from different background, lots of different backgrounds. You have worked with lots of different people, so in this case you needed to adapt to them in
Yeah.
a way.
Yeah, I mean, in the beginning, I was frustrated a lot, I think. Like, I didn't understand why they couldn't see what I saw. It was so clear to me what needed to change, and I just didn't understand why they weren't like hopping on board. I'm like, what's the problem? I would get very frustrated. But now we're using this psychometric personality testing called Lumina Spark, and it's really transformational. Like, I highly recommend everybody to try it out. What it does is it explains your preferences. It's not about putting you into a box. But for me, for example, I really like to see the big picture. I want to understand what is the impact of this, the things that we're doing. And a lot of other people, though, they really need details in order to make decisions. So if you come at them with a big picture, imagine this, we're all going to sit in the open space with the colleagues. They don't know what to do with that information. They need to know the step-by-step process. How is that going to work? So all
Yeah,
of a sudden,
and the context, right? What's behind it?
context, why, they need to know why. And so if you bombard them, like with my preference, they shut down. So what I was seeing was passive behavior, withdrawnness, and they're seeing me as like imposing some idea on them. So the thing with Lumina Spark is that you have this self-awareness, self-understanding, self-knowledge. It's a step 1. So I know that I need the big picture. I can say that to somebody. I can say, tell me what's the big picture. And you can do that even if you are not a big picture thinker. And then it's valuing diversity. So knowing that a person who needs details is actually very valuable to me as someone who skips over a lot of details and could take risks when not necessary. And then you have creating rapport, which is about empathy and understanding the other person. And then the final is co-creating results. So when we did these exercises together as a group and to understand one another, and you have like an app where you can share your preferences, you have a common language where you can express what you need. So instead of this person saying completely, shutting down and not coming with me on my journey of transformation, they can say, Catherine, can you tell me exactly how that's going to work? And then I'll say, sure, no problem. And now I know what you need, I can give it to you. So we were getting blocked on a lot of these opposite preferences and opposite behaviors, which now I have to say, after using this tool for about a year, there's nothing I couldn't get them to do. I think and the same thing with other groups of people in the company. Now we've rolled it out. We've done 200 different personality assessments, including a 1-hour professional debrief with a real expert. And 15 of our teams have done full day workshops on understanding one another and how to communicate more effectively. So it's like greasing the wheels for a serious race before you go, instead of just screeching along. You really need to invest in this step to make things go faster. So I have to say that really changed things for me, and it taught me so much about motivating people to transform, and it takes a lot of consistency and repetition as well. So, and it's easy to make a change, but to make a transformation is a long-term process, and you never stop. It's kind of like losing weight or something. You have to maintain it later, right? Anyone can do a crash diet and lose weight in a couple of weeks. But if you want to maintain it, it requires a diet plan, it requires a workout routine. And it's the same thing in a big organization. You have to have checkpoints where you check those rules again. It should be on the calendar. You have to have time dedicated in leadership team to checking, is the transformation still going on? Do we need to invest time, money, resources in making sure that it continues on the right trajectory? Because otherwise it's changing water to ice. It'll just melt right back.
Love that. So I have two things to ask you for the end. One is, did we miss something? Something that you want to say, or something that you want to conclude that I didn't ask you? So that's the first thing.
Okay. I'd say the number one takeaway is, before investing in any kind of employer branding or recruitment, advertising, or PR of any kind, make sure you've invested in your people first and your processes, to make sure that you have a sound culture. You just pump that money into your actual people, and they will recruit for you. We have 50% of our people who come from referrals. So you can imagine the amount of money that saves. So reward your employees also for referral fees really well, and invest in them first before you look outside.
Yeah, I love that. I think Nevena Sofranic, I don't know if you know her, but I think she'd love that conclusion.
Totally.
And the second thing is, I didn't do that before, but it came to my mind when I was watching the diary of a CEO, and it is, what's the one thing that you would ask our next guest? So I don't have a question from the previous guest, because this is the first time I'm doing it. So what's the one thing that you would ask somebody that comes to the next episode?
But who is it?
I have no idea at the moment. So that's why it's interesting.
Just anybody?
Yeah.
If you had $1 million to invest in any company to do any change you want, what would it be, and what would the change be?
Love that. Oh, I'll send you the answer.
I'll have to watch.
Yeah. So tell us where people can find more information about you, when they can reach out to you, get engaged, and learn some things from you as well.
I'm on LinkedIn quite a bit. You can find me on LinkedIn. I love to have questions. So if there's any kind of topic around culture, recruitment, organizational health, this kind of thing, productivity at work, I'm happy to engage. If you're interested in a career at Scaleway, the cloud of choice, I'm in the cloud right now. This is not a fake background. You can head on over to the careers website, careers, I think, .scaleway.com.
Yeah, we'll leave the link in the comments, so
Cool.
people can go and check it out. Catherine, thanks a lot for taking the time and doing this, and being honest and sharing lots of stuff. And I think it was useful not only for the people from B2B, but also other people thinking about getting the job or moving inside the company, or actually taking care of people inside their company.
Cool. It was my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Guys, for you, I can only say, go back to the beginning of the episode, try to unlock all those things that Catherine said, and as always, keep it funky.
Okay.
Bye bye.